Welcome everyone to the first of our weekly Herts Academic Skills webinars. I have planned a series of 9 webinars. They will start at 4 o'clock every Tuesday afternoon. The time is booked for me from 4 until 6, but I would expect each of my sections of the webinar to finish at some time either between 5 o'clock and 5:30, and I will try to allow some time at the end for anyone who has any questions, and I'll try to respond to them. We've currently got 70 people in the webinar, which is absolutely fantastic. The aim is for this to be as interactive as it can be with so many people in an online class. One of the things that we will use to try to make it interactive is Mentimeter. I have put a link to the Menti in the chat, but if you have the capacity, if you have more than one screen or more than one device, you can have one of them open on a browser, enter menti.com and enter the number 76292584, and it will take you to the screen that I'm sharing with you now. I am recording this session, and if you're watching a recording, there will be ways for you to interact with some other questions too, but the experience won't be exactly the same as when we're doing this live. Okay, so please do follow the link. I can see that 19 people have done that so far, but hopefully we'll have more of you able to follow the link over the next few minutes, because I have a few questions for you. And the first question is this. Preferably in one word, how are you feeling right now? This is a really good start for those of you feeling good, great, and excited. I have a lot of sympathy with whoever is feeling tired. I'm feeling a bit tired too, but also delighted that so many of you have joined. If you're feeling fresh and relaxed, and you've got a secret you want to share of how you feel fresh and relaxed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in October in the United Kingdom, I think we could start a business together if we can sell whatever it is that makes us feel fresh and relaxed at this time. Wonderful. So thank you for those of you who have responded. I will keep posting the link in the chat, so just in case you've missed it, you can follow that link. But please bear in mind, I am alone running this webinar. So if there are questions in the chat that I don't see, but you see them and you feel able to answer and help your fellow students, then please do. Congratulations to whoever wrote fantabulous in there. So fantastic, great to meet you all. My name is Mark Holloway. I'm the Associate Director for Academic Skills at the university, and in these workshops on various elements of academic skills that we're going to run every Tuesday from 4 o'clock. Initially, we're going to do some introductions, and I'll try to provide you with an introduction to communicating, but particularly writing at university, and some really important things to learn about that and take forward. And then in future weeks, we'll do some more on communicating effectively at university, particularly in your assessments. We've got 3 webinars in a row where we'll look at the different stages of tackling and completing assignments. We'll also have some webinars on how to improve work that you've started, how to learn from feedback, and make the most from feedback. And as I hope that you'll join me in every week, but any weeks that if you struggle to join in any particular week, it's not a problem. You can jump back in the next week. And I will try to get some feedback from you as we go along in terms of what things that you would like me to cover in future webinars. So good to feel that you're all feeling so positive. I think tired is the worst that anyone is feeling. So we'll move on and I'll ask you another question. It's a really simple question. Where are you from? We've got 51 people in the Menti now, which is wonderful. Thank you. Let's see how many responses we can get here. Some mixed answers here. I think what you can see, the way that Menti works is if we have, let's say if we have one person from Luton and one person from America, then the words Luton and America will look the same size. But if we have two people saying Luton and one person saying America, then the word Luton will be twice as big as the word America. So the size of the words on the screen will tell you how many different people are entering the same words. So we've got a real kind of mix of nationalities, I guess, in the room. Actually, though, if you ask me the question, where are you from? Personally, I find that a very difficult question to answer. I'm from the UK, but I was born in a town that I've never visited. And my family are from kind of the middle of the country around Birmingham, and I kind of have lived in lots of different places in my life. So I actually find this quite a difficult question to answer. But I have lived and worked overseas, and I did notice that when I lived overseas, I found it very easy just to say, I'm English, I'm from England. But if you ask me while I'm in this country, I don't tend to say the same thing. Lovely. I think I've got one more question for you. And that's this. How many different WhatsApp groups are you in? These aren't just random questions, by the way. I will come back. There are reasons why I'm asking you these particular questions. We'll come back to it later. Some very rapid responses to this question. Thank you very much. Only one person is in 0 WhatsApp groups. If this means that you're not on WhatsApp, then congratulations to you. I do think WhatsApp groups can be great when you're a student. And I know that sometimes in webinars like this, students like to use the chat to share links to their WhatsApp groups so you can connect to one another outside of the webinar. I'm more than happy for you to do that, but I would say be careful and just make sure that you're in a WhatsApp group with people that you trust before you share too much information. All right, lovely. So 2 of you are in more than 20 WhatsApp groups. 1 of you is in 0. If you, I think the person who is in 0 WhatsApp group should get a prize for this. Now, we will come back to these questions. These are all important questions, and I'll explain later why I've asked you this. But we really move into the main content of the webinar with this next question, because our focus today is really on the relationship between reading, writing, and the communities that we belong to. So there's a question now. Not so fast, the responses to this. And my last question, I got very rapid responses. What is the last thing that you read before this webinar? Please be as specific as possible. Thank you. Like you've given the I presume when you say mail, you're talking about email. I don't know how you read a lecture notes maybe, or you watch a lecture. If you are reading the news, it'd be interesting to know where you get your news from. If you're reading lecture notes, is this coming from, like, has someone given you the lecture notes, like a lecturer, or have you made the lecture notes and you're a really good student who's already revising what you're learning? An article on sickle cell on the NIH website, Prescott's microbiology book, scientific articles plural. Very impressive. I'm really curious, those of you reading notes, are they your own notes? Are you taking them yourself? Are you taking those notes on paper, or are you taking them electronically? As we speak, I've got my work notebook in front of me, and I'm writing a few things down that I don't want to forget. I have a research notebook and a diary and a bunch of other notebooks. I like to write down a lot of things. I'm also a big fan of taking electronic notes through a tool called Obsidian, which is a free digital note-taking platform. Great. But look, 27 people have answered this. You've all read a few things. You've all read something today. I'm interested in whoever's read road signs. Please feel free to share your butter chicken recipe in the chat. We all like butter chicken, I'm sure. Great. Thank you very much. Right. Now let's keep thinking about things that we've read. And I'd like you to think of a text. Now, when I say text, I don't mean like a text message on WhatsApp or on your phone. I'm like, when I say the word text, I might mean a book, or I might mean a journal article. I don't know. I guess that's a kind of journal article. Yeah, something you've read. It could be fact. It could be fiction. It could be a story. It could be a book. Could be an article. Could be something from a magazine. It could be a news report. Preferably something that has been published and not just personal communication to you. But can you have a think about something that you have read that had an impact on your life? I'm going to ask you to write just a couple of sentences. Right? So we have a bit of nice quiet time, but I'd really appreciate it if you could write a couple of sentences, small paragraph maybe, that communicates two things: what you read and what impact it had on you. So something that you read that has had an impact on you. What was the thing that you read? You might say the name of that thing that you read. You might say the name of the author of the thing that you read, and you might briefly summarize what it was. And tell me what impact it has had on you. Now, I can see 56 of you are in the Menti, which is absolutely great. Oh, sorry. 56 of you are in the Menti. And I would love it if you could share your sentences, just a few sentences within this Menti. I appreciate it will take you a couple of minutes to write, but that's fine. Silence is fine. Sometimes some of you might have had a long day. Lots of you are feeling good and full of energy. But yeah, take a couple of minutes and just write a few sentences to tell me about the text that you read that had an impact on your life, what it was, and the impact it had on you. If you can't access the Menti, so I'm just putting a link into the chat again to the Menti. If you can't access the Menti, you're very welcome to share the information about that text in the chat. If it's a bit more personal, or you're not too keen on sharing your writing, you could always email it to me directly. I've just put my email address in the chat. It's m.holloway3@herts.ac.uk. We already have a response in the Mentee, but you've only told me the name of the text, and I'd like a bit more information than that. I'd like to know what it is and what its impact was on you. So look, what you'll see that in these workshops, I will ask you to do short pieces of writing, and I will try to give you some feedback on it. And what we're doing here is we're taking our first steps towards being good, successful writers at university. Because actually, I really strongly believe that anyone can become good at academic writing. All of you are here at the university, you've met the requirements for your course, you have the ability and the potential to write brilliant things for your course. And we're just going to unlock your ability one step at a time. So I read Confessions of a Good Girl last year and bawled my eyes out. I'm someone that cries only twice a year. The story felt written for me. I felt seen finally. Wow, what an amazing piece of writing. Thank you very much for sharing that with me. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Such an empowering book. It helped me understand how every small thing I do in life can lead to big and lasting changes. Novel by Haruki Murakami changed my way of thinking about reality and perceptions. The Alchemist had a great impact on my life. Like everything sort of situation can happen, doesn't matter on you, and you only lose when you give up. Oh, this is lovely stuff. Please do take, if you're not writing something yourself, then do admire what other people are sharing with you here and enjoy. And look, I've been a teacher for quite a long time now, so I really can't help being a teacher. And I do think that you probably want me to be a teacher. So I will make some observations. Right. This text here about the alchemist. So this is great. I asked you about what the text is, what it's about, and what was the impact. Here I've got the name of the text and I've got the impact. But perhaps you could have added a detail about, I think you're talking about a novel by Paulo Coelho. So maybe you could have included that detail, like the novel The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho had a great impact on my life. And notice that we only need to add 3 or 4 words, and suddenly we're adding a lot of detail. Like the text, the writing here about the novel by Murakami, I'd like to know the title of the novel and what it's about, and that could just be 1 sentence. Confessions of a Good Girl, who's the author of that text, and so on. Right? The Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney showed me it's okay to be awkward, laugh at my mistakes, and stay true to myself. It made growing up feel less scary and more relatable. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. Again, I'll always suggest something that could be added to that, and it could be like a very brief description of what the Diary of a Wimpy Kid is. Fantastic. The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. It reminded me that healing isn't always pretty, but it's powerful, and I can still grow. I could read these all day, but this is just kind of like the introduction to the section. But a really important element here of everything that I'm going to ever say to you about writing is that good writing at university, good academic writing, is all about the way we write about what we've read. Now, it would be rude of me not to share this with you. I'm really sorry, because like the Menti link at the top of this has probably covered what I wanted to say, but this would be my answer to that question. And I would say when I was 16, I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte in about 3 days. So there's me giving the name of the text and the name of the author. It's a novel that tells the story of a deep but impossible romantic relationship and its generation-spanning consequences. So that's me saying what the text is about. And then what comes next is my impact. So yeah, I became so immersed in it that it changed the way I thought about art and literature, which ultimately led to me studying English at university instead of law. And that's absolutely true. So at the age of 16, I read something that I think has led to me being where I am now, not just professionally talking to you wonderful people at the University of Hertfordshire, but even personally, because actually going along a journey of studying English and literature and language put me in a position, the amazing and very fortunate position I found myself in later in life. When I met my wife, I think we had a kind of spark and a chemistry that comes from that. And so I owe everything to Wuthering Heights, or at least to reading. What I'm trying to show you here is a relationship between reading and writing, and how actually, and just to in a very concise piece of writing, we can say something about what we've read and we can respond to it. And I would suggest, and I'm going to try to put more detail on this, that academic writing is ultimately about responding to something that you've read. And of course, it's not always as personal as this, but one thing it is doing, you'll notice that I gave you a question, I gave you a task, I gave you instructions. Everything that you write, all the academic writing you ever do, the assignments that you write at university, the most important aspect of them to begin with will be the instructions. And if you follow the instructions, and you can't go far wrong. And this was an important part of this task. There were two elements to the instructions: write what you read, name it and summarize it, and write what impact it has had on you. And you'll see that in your first responses to this, very few people actually did all of those things. Very few people actually like named the text and the author and summarized the text and then gave the impact. Pretty much everyone said something about the impact and something about the text. But there's a lesson for us to learn already there. Number one, read the instructions, follow the instructions fully, and you'll do well. Right. Now, I promised that we would talk about reading, writing, and really important word for me, community. I hope already, we've got 82 people in this webinar. I hope you can start to feel part of a community, even of people who are within this webinar, as you see your ideas being shared in the room and other people contributing there. Now, I've got 61 people in the Menti. Please do join if you're able to, because we've got 21 people in the webinar who aren't on the Menti. But if you follow the link, you'll be able to get onto it. This is really simple. I'm going to find my phone. I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. And in 1 minute, I'd like you to answer the question on the board in as many different ways as possible. I think I read about diabetes is actually a response to the last question, but that's fine. It's not a problem. You can answer this in just one word, but you can also answer multiple times. So I just want you to complete this sentence in as many different ways as you can. I am a. We already have a brilliant answer here. I am a person who never gives up. I'm a boy, I'm a Kenyan. So I might say, like, most important thing to me in my life, I'm a father. Second most important thing to me in my life, I'm a husband. And then I might start to say things like, I'm a friend, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm an educator, I'm an associate director for academic skills. I don't know, that's not so catchy. I'm a University of Hertfordshire member of staff. If you had asked me this question 15 years ago, my most important answer would have been, I am a West Bromwich Albion supporter. But just in case my wife and daughter ever watch this video, I want them to know that they are more important to me than my useless football team who always let me down. Okay, so thank you for your responses. I'll give you another 10 seconds. We have a 3D artist, a rugby player, multiple dreamers, I think, a biomedical scientist, extraordinary person. Yeah, I expected more of you to say student. I expected the word student to appear like really bold, but yeah, some of you have said recruit, student. Someone said recruiter. Please do let us know kind of how much you're paying because you might be able to recruit us. I'm a learner, I'm a scientist, I'm a friend. It's lovely. I'm an enthusiastic person, photographer. Fantastic. Okay. So just have a look at the screen right now, because there's an important point that I want to say here. Like in our lives, I think, you know, we have multiple, we play multiple roles in our life, and we kind of maybe have multiple identities. And sometimes we are multiple identities at the same time, and sometimes we have to move between the identities through the day. So maybe like it's really important to me in the morning, I drop my daughter at school. And maybe after I've dropped my daughter at school, I don't stop being a father, but I'm like not an active father while my daughter's in school. And then I go to work and then I'm an employee. But within any day, we move between these identities and we maybe behave differently according to the identities that we're in. And I'd like to suggest that in most of the identities that you can see on the screen, in most of your identities, you're not 100% alone, right? You don't necessarily do all of these things by yourself. Even the person who said, I'm an introvert, maybe you might be an introvert in a community of friends who are also introverts, or you might have some extrovert friends, and actually you being the introvert is a really important part of your community, that your friendship group. Whoever's a singer, you know, you're probably part of a community which maybe performs or plays music and so on. And of course, we're using words like healthcare professional, researcher, students, and there we are kind of part of a university or a professional community. And I want to suggest that actually in every community we belong to, we have ways of communicating, which include ways of speaking, ways of writing, ways of kind of making language choices, right? This is my first slide with like lots of information on. I will share a PowerPoint version of these slides so that we're not always missing things because of this Menti label here. So yeah, what I'm talking about here in my field, so I'm an applied linguist, and in linguistics, we might be interested in what's called discourse communities. So discourse is just a nice academic term that kind of means speaking and writing, like communicating. And a discourse community would be a group of people who communicate with each other about a particular topic. Hazrat, I see that you have your hand up. Hazrat, would you like to speak? Hazrat, if you'd like to speak, please unmute yourself and just go ahead and speak. Otherwise, I'll continue. Okay. Hazrat, you've got your hand up. If you want to ask something, you could put your question in the chat and I'll pick it up later. But maybe your hand is up by accident. Anyway, right. So what I was saying is that Hazrat, you've taken your mic off. Did you want to speak?
Nothing, sir. This is just automatically.
Is what, sorry?
Sir, this is automatically click. I not click this.
Oh, it's an accent. Don't worry. You can just unclick it. Don't worry. Okay. I'll lower your hand for you. No problem.
I'm listening.
Thank you.
I'm
All right.
listening.
Okay. So, look, we're in a community right now. Hazrat is a member of that community, and what we've already established in our community is that because there's a lot of people in the room, what everyone's done is they've turned off their microphone, and when they want to speak, they raise their hand, right? There's probably not many communities you belong to where that would be necessary, right? If you're sitting with a group of friends, I would imagine that you don't cover your mouth and then put your hand up just at the times that you want to speak, right? So we establish in every community kind of rules for the way that we speak and the way that we write to one another and the kind of language that we use. We usually don't write down these rules. They're usually unwritten, unspoken rules, but they determine the type of writing that we do and the type of communication we do, and they determine the style of that writing, which will include the vocabulary used and that we use and grammar structures that we use. Now, I asked you earlier how many different WhatsApp groups you're in. I'd like you to think about the different WhatsApp groups you're in now. I suspect that you use language and writing quite differently in those different WhatsApp groups because of the communities of people that are represented by that WhatsApp group. Right. So I'm pretty sure that your choice of vocabulary with your closest friends in a WhatsApp group would be quite different to a choice of vocabulary that you might use if you were in a WhatsApp group with people that you work with and maybe that you've just met. I know that in my WhatsApp groups with my friends, we probably use language that might be really kind of rude and inappropriate in some of my other groups, but we use it in a nice, friendly way, and we all love each other. You might find that in some of your WhatsApp groups, you really pay attention to things like spelling and punctuation, and in others that you don't. And that was something about the community. Hopefully you're following me, but please do tell me if you don't. I'll be really grateful. You give me a thumbs up in the Menti, or you could write something in the chat if that sounds about true for you. Yeah, give me a thumbs up in the Menti here if you would agree that in the different WhatsApp groups you belong to, you use language differently. You might even use different languages, and you write differently according to the groups, right? Okay, and this is really good news. Like at least 13 of you agree with me. So at least 13 of you, I think you've already taken like the first steps. You've already got some skills in communicating in different contexts and for different audiences. And so actually shifting to communicating as a university student for a university audience is just another step, right? It's not something that we should be afraid of. Right? Now, I would say that the communities we belong to, they typically have quite shared interests and values, right? So I'm in a community of other people who support the same football team as me. So we all support West Bromwich Albion together, and that means we have a shared interest in the success of our team, and we all value being supporters of a team that's not very successful and doesn't have a lot of money. And we probably have a shared dislike of Aston Villa and especially Wolverhampton Wanderers. We really don't like those two other teams. Right. Now, together, I think me included, we are all part of the same university community now, right? We're all part of a community of people at the University of Hertfordshire. That means we're part of an academic community. I think each of you might also feel like you are part of a community of students in your specific subject area. And you could say that you're part of a community of people who study your subject or write about your subject around the world, right? So Rinsana, I hope I've said your name correctly, is a microbiologist. So Rinsana is a member of the University of Hertfordshire student community, but also a member of the community of microbiologists at Hertfordshire. and microbiologists around the world. Now, when we are part of an academic community, I think we have some shared interests and values. And a question on the Menti right now is, what do you think are the shared interests and values of academic communities? And already we have four brilliant suggestions. I'm really happy with these suggestions. I can see that multiple people have said we value knowledge. We are interested in knowledge and we value knowledge. And I think you're right that we're interested in sharing information, ideas, and perhaps we're doing that because we care about knowledge. I think these things are related. Okay, fantastic. Now, obviously, I've prepared my own kind of answer to this, and please do use like the thumb up in Menti if you want to agree with these things, or put things in the chat if you want to ask a question or tell me you have a different opinion to me. That's absolutely fine. I would say the academic communities, and look, the first word I've used is the word that you most commonly answered. Academic communities value knowledge. We value understanding. We value analysis, and we value critical thinking. Right? We value being smart. I would say we are typically interested in complex ideas and challenging questions. Right? When you do assignments at university, don't go looking for easy questions. If you think you're being asked an easy question at university, you might have misunderstood the question. Typically, we want to ask and try to answer challenging questions because we value knowledge and we care about being analytical and critical, right? We're not here to do easy stuff that we already know. We want to expand our knowledge and understanding, and that's why we're interested in complex and difficult things. Finally, I mean, we did have on the previous slide, we had the idea of like this common interests was one. Where was it? I can't see it now. Yeah, common goals. Yeah, I think common goals might relate to having things in common with one another, and academic communities typically try to show respect to other members of their community, or maybe academic communities have to show respect to other members of the community. Okay, so this is how I would present like what are the values and interests of academic communities. And I think if we consider what academic communities care about, it might be reasonable to expect to see this in the way that we communicate, and particularly the way that we write in academic communities. So for me, academic writing, because we care about knowledge and analysis and critical thinking, academic writing is always rooted in reading and research. Academic writing needs to communicate complex ideas and address difficult questions because that's what we care about. Academic writing needs to show respect to other members of the community because we want to show respect. And one other random thing I've added at the end there is academic writing tends to have a word limit. Now that is also, I think, related to showing respect to other members of the community, because if I have if I'm writing, if Rinsana is writing something about microbiology to the rest of the microbiology community, we want everyone to read that. And if we send them 50,000 words, it's going to take them a long time to read it. So if we can use fewer words and apply some word limits, it will help us to communicate respectfully to more people, right? Okay. I tried to give you one takeaway message earlier, which was start with the instructions, always follow instructions. Instructions are key. My takeaway message about academic writing is that because of these things, because of what we value as academic communities, and because of what academic writing needs to do, I would typically say that academic writing just needs to be three things. It needs to be precise, it needs to be concise. So that means if you can say something in 10 words, say it in 10 words, not 20. Don't take up your reader's time. It needs to be precise, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be respectful. Right? So if you can take away these two things, even if you have to leave now, these would be two things to take away. Always read the instructions and follow them, and consider that academic writing needs to be precise, concise, and respectful. We're going to explore this a little bit more now. And I'd like us to think about a conversation, right? So what I want to present here is an idea about that I think can help us when we read and when we write for academic purposes, right? Personal question for you. Imagine you're invited to a student party in the UK. The party starts at 8 o'clock, right? So you're in a WhatsApp group and someone says, party at my house at 8 o'clock. What time do you arrive? And I'm remembering that at the beginning of this webinar, we could see that we had people from Luton, people from the Americas, someone from Ecuador. We had students from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nigeria, and did I say India? India was the big one, right? So this is really interesting. So I do want everyone to put themselves in a party frame of mind, right? And I've got some really important news for you, right? As an ambassador for the UK, if a British person invites you to a party at their house and they tell you to arrive at 8 o'clock, they do not want to see you before 8 o'clock. Even at 8 p.m. precisely, that's a bit early. My strong recommendation is that you arrive after 8 p.m. and possibly after 9 p.m. And if you invite a bunch of British people to a party, and you tell them to come at 8 o'clock, don't be surprised if they come after 10 o'clock. I'm sorry about this on behalf of my country, but I think you need to know this information. All right, but please put your thumbs up. Please click the thumbs up on Menti if you are now in a party frame of mind. I want you to imagine you're going to a party. That's really important for the next stage. Okay, fantastic. So let's imagine I've invited you to a party at my house. When you arrive, there are lots of people in the house, lots of very smart and intelligent people, and you're walking around. It's a nice, friendly atmosphere. And you decide to go into the kitchen to get a drink. And when you go into the kitchen, you see there's a group of people having a conversation. And you are immediately interested in the topic of conversation. It's a topic that you're interested in, and you would quite like to join this conversation, right? So you go into the room, there's a group of people, they've already started having a conversation, and you would like to join this conversation. I'm going to ask you to use the chat for this because it's not possible in the Menti the way I've set it up. You can also, if you'd like to speak, I'm really happy to hear your voices. But okay, so you walk into this room, you want to join the conversation. What do you do? How do you join this conversation? How can you join a conversation? There are people already talking about a topic that you are very interested in. What do you do? Naveed has said greetings. Naveed, do you mean like you just go in and say, hey, everyone, hello? Is that what you mean? Naveed says exactly. See, I would be too shy to do that. If people are having a conversation, I'm not going to go in and say, "Hey everyone, listen to me. My name is Mark. I think you should listen to me." I think, maybe I don't start a conversation like that. Jesna saying that's an interesting one. Is that how, so you're responding to someone else by telling them what they're saying is interesting? And I think Mohammed might be suggesting something similar, which is like finding a point to join in where you can provide your own interesting experience. Saad is saying, wait for the right moment. And Navi says you've got to get attention. Loretta says, sorry to interrupt. Tell me if this sounds crazy, but what I would do is I would just wait and listen. Like, and I know I think some of you are kind of suggesting this, but nobody said like wait and listen, but you want to see who are the people in the room and how are they discussing this conversation, right? There you go. I would listen to the topics being discussed and try to add a fact or something. Well, I think perhaps a communication expert might suggest that, first of all, you listen to what people in the room are saying. And then that allows you to get a sense of who agrees with whom, who is an expert on the topic, who isn't, who disagrees with each other, what are the points of controversy. Someone's referred to experience. What kind of experiences do the people in the room have? I think, first of all, you have to work out who is already in the room, who is part of this conversation, and what are they all saying. And then I think you can start to join in, first of all, without speaking. So without speaking, what could you do to start participating in this conversation? I think Farhana is like suggesting that you can reply if you first you listen, and then if they ask you something, you can join in, and maybe we'll come back to that. But yeah, Jesna says just like nodding your head. I think you're absolutely right. Your first interaction with the conversation is maybe your body language or just making a noise. Like Loretta says, laughing. Yeah, laughing. You might even laugh at a point that someone makes, but that might be quite rude. But yeah, sometimes just like making a noise, like or yes, like agreeing with someone when they speak, or nodding your head, or doing this kind of body language and like showing that you disagree. I think this is what we typically see when you first join a conversation. First, you listen to who is saying what, then you start to show who you agree with, who you disagree with, who's persuading you, and then I think there might be a point where we're more likely to be invited into the conversation, or we find a point by which we can find a point at which we can add something. So we go from saying yes, you're right, to yes, and also have you considered this? And you probably already guessed, right? But this is my metaphor for reading and writing within an academic community, reading and writing as a university student. The nice thing about being a university student is that your lecturers are kind of taking you to the party, and they're taking you to the conversation. And when they give you an assignment and they ask you, like, what do you think about this question? They're kind of inviting you in, right? But typically within a metaphor for academic discourse, and particularly writing in for academic purposes, is we start by reading, right? And I would hope that when we're reading, we might be underlining things, highlighting, maybe writing notes in the margins about like what we agree with or what we disagree with. We're getting a sense of, in anything we read, who are the people involved in the conversation? Like, who's the author? Who does the author refer to? And if we read in that way, it makes academic writing successfully so much easier, because what we're doing is starting to find a position in relation to the things that we're reading. And then that makes it possible for us to think analytically and critically about the things that we're reading, and to do all of the things that everybody wants you to do with your academic writing. Right, well, I'm going to try to make that a little bit more practical. I kind of use this question like, who's in the room? So whenever you read something, you can ask yourself, well, in this book I'm reading, who is in the room? Who is the author leading the conversation? And who are the other names that they're bringing in? A lot of the academic text that you read, there will be references to lots of other authors. So that might be through the author's name and a date, or it might be through a numerical reference, and you follow the number to the notes, and then you see the name of other authors. The academic texts are full of connections to other texts, and we have to remember that these are all people. These are all researchers or experts in different ways that are being referred to. So whenever you're reading, think about who's in the room, who's in the conversation. And I'd like to introduce a really simple concept from one of my favorite books. This book is called They Say, I Say, and it's actually where I took the metaphor of the conversation in a room. So this is Gerald Graff and Kathy Birkenstein. If anyone has studied in the United States, lots of universities give this book to students in the United States. It's not so popular in the UK, or it's not very well known, but I think it's our little kind of a secret weapon here at Hertfordshire that we think this is a great book in relation to academic writing. And this, I want to share the most important point of this book with you. It's called They Say, I Say, because it suggests that all academic writing is like a conversation, and that all academic writing is a response to what other people have written, what others have gone before. Remember that when we were in the party and we went into the kitchen, the conversation had already started, right? And there's going to be a point where we feel confident enough to join in and show who we agree with and give our own position and give our own reasons and possibly experience or things that we found out ourselves. But we will leave that conversation, and the conversation will continue without us. All academic writing will go on and on and on and on. And we join it when we're students, and we might leave it, but it will continue without us. Okay. But it's always responding to what has gone before, what other people have written. And what Graff and Birkenstein say is that when we're writing, like we might use different language to this, but there are fundamentally 3 different ways that we respond to the things that we read. We might disagree. So our response to something we read might be no. We might completely agree. So our response to the thing that we read is yes. But a very important and a very common response to what we read is a kind of yes, but. So yes, that's true in this context, but what about this context? Or yes, that's a reason why that might happen, but what about these other reasons? Or what if that's a reason for something else as well? Right? We're going to try to we're going to try a little exercise to test this and just to bring it to life. Remember that today's webinar is an introduction to academic writing. I'm not trying to tell you everything you need to know about writing. I'm trying to give you the most important foundations, the most important first steps in academic writing. And if we apply this in the future again and again, and we practice, we will all be fine. At the beginning of this webinar, I asked you all a question. I asked, and you can put in the chat, can you remember the second question I asked? Well, yeah, the second question I asked you in the Menti. The first question I asked you was, how are you feeling? But the second question I asked you was something else. Does anyone want to suggest in the chat what was the second question I asked you, if you can remember? Thank you, Jesna. Jesna, you get an award. The second question I asked you was, where are you from? Now, a few years ago, 3 years ago, in fact, when I was still on Twitter before it became X, I'm not on it anymore. I refuse to be on it now. But you can find me on Blue Sky if you like. So, yeah, I saw this tweet from a very well-respected linguist in the United States called Uju Anya. And she wrote this: no matter how sweetly you ask it, where are you from is not a polite question. So now I have a problem, right? Because we just met, and 1 hour ago I asked all of you, where are you from? So I don't know if I asked it sweetly, but apparently that is not a polite question. So my question for you is, what do you think? Do you agree with her? Do you disagree with her? Or do you want to say, yes, I agree with her, but? So let me open this to you. No matter how sweetly you ask it, where are you from is not a polite question. Over to you. What do you think? Do you agree with Uju Anya? Do you disagree? Or do you agree, but? Now, the first two, already we've got two answers, no and yes. Brilliant. But we don't have any details, right? Now, can you go back and can you add detail? Not just no, but no because. Can you do that? There you go. We've started to, well, no, but it depends on the tone in which it is asked. Depends on the context and the way it's asked. Someone's put in the chat, it depends on context of usage. Yes, but it totally depends what the conversation is about. Okay, right. So now we're getting somewhere. I'd also like you, no, because we should be proud of our originality and roots. It depends on the question, how the question is asked. No, because it's meant just only to know about the person. I'm with you. I'm with you here because, like, the first time I saw this tweet, my first reaction was, oh, I ask that question all the time, and I ask it very, very politely. Right? However, in the chat, I'm just putting the name of an author and a book that I have read in the last couple of years. I Belong Here by Anita Sethi. Now, Anita Sethi was born in Manchester in the UK. Her mother was born in Guyana, which is in South America. But you may or may not know this, but in Guyana, there's quite a large population of people whose ancestors were taken by the British from India to South America, more or less to work as slaves, right? So they were kind of colonial subjects taken from one side of the world to another in order to work for the British Empire. But in the 20th century, when there was a need for labour in the UK, particularly in some really important areas of work, there was quite a lot of migration from Guyana to the UK. And Anita Sethi's mother was precisely a person with Indian heritage who travelled from Guyana to the UK to make a new life in Manchester and to work as a nurse. Now, my oldest sister is a nurse. I happen to think that being a nurse is one of the best things you could possibly be. It's one of the most noble professions. We really need nurses. So we should be grateful to anyone who wants to be a nurse, right? Anita Sethi became a writer, grew up, became a writer. She wrote this brilliant book called I Belong Here, which is about her relationship with the UK. And in her book, she tells a story of meeting King Charles when he was still, before he became king, he was Prince Charles. And he asked her the question, where are you from? And I think what becomes clear is her feeling when he says, where are you from? Is kind of like, you're not from here. And he's asking her because she's got brown skin, right? And actually, she's born in the UK. She's British. She's from Manchester. And when she said, I come from Manchester, he said to her, you don't look like you're from Manchester. And her response to that in her book is, well, actually, I do look like I'm from Manchester. Lots of people in Manchester look like me. But it did make me remember this tweet and made me think that when the question, where are you from, was being asked there, it wasn't particularly polite. So those of you saying, yeah, it depends on the context, I think Anita Sethi might agree with you there. Now, something that I think that we are missing from our responses, look, if you look at the screen now, you'll see initially we had some no, yes, really simple answers. And as I scroll down, we see a bit more detail. But what I don't think we have just yet is a real sense of, of they say, I say. And in order to do that, let me just check my settings. Are you still able to add more sentences to this slide? Because I will amend it so that you can, because I'd like you to be able to improve on the first thing that you wrote. What I'd like you to do to thank you, Preeti, for your response. What I'd like you to do, whether you have already written something or not, just think about this again. And remember, like, if we're talking about academic writing being like a conversation, and if you remember when I asked you to write about a text that had an impact on you, I asked you to say something about the text first. So could you try to do it again? But first of all, just by saying something like, Uju Anya believes that it is never polite to ask where you're from. And then continue the sentence with, but, or you can full stop and I agree because, or I agree to an extent, but. And what you should find is that we can get two sentences and we start to build up a sense of academic writing as a conversation, because we will be saying, Uju Anya says this, and this is my response to what she said. Let's see if you're able to add that to the Menti. Okay. And thank you so much for sharing your answer. Remember, don't just jump into I agree. This is a nice example we've got here. Oh, look, I'm able to highlight it. We've now got the name of an author coming into our writing. And I'd like you to imagine this, right? if someone who is not in this webinar saw your writing tomorrow, if they saw this this response, I think they'd already have a good idea of what you were trying to do. They'd get a sense of, oh, this student is writing, this author says this, but I say this, right? If they only saw this, they wouldn't know what it means. Yeah. If they said this, they'd get a sense of you're disagreeing with something, but they wouldn't know what you're talking about, right? Oh, sorry, I've got too excited and I've stopped presenting. If you bear with me, great. Okay, so we have another one here. And do feel free to keep putting revisions of this into the Menti until we've got something that we're really, really happy with. I would say, for example, if you take this example, if you take this text, thank you very much for sharing. I would say that in the second sentence, now, I do agree partly with the sentence, but at the end of the day, it entirely depends on the context and tone. If you can remember the three things I said about academic writing, it should be precise, concise, and respectful. At the end of the day is not very concise, because actually that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. And I think it could be replaced by one word, which would be ultimately. But it ultimately depends on the context and tone. And then you might want to add more detail about what do we mean about context and tone. And I think, for example, it's really important for me to emphasize that Uju Anya is in the United States, where actually there's a much larger proportion of the population is non-white than, say, in the UK, and it is absolutely normal and American to be born to be born in the United States and to not be white. And I think what she's referring to is when you're from the United States and someone says to you, "Oh, where are you from?" because they're implying that if you're not white, that you're from somewhere else. Of course, if we know our history, well, we might know that everyone in the United States has ancestors from somewhere else, with only a few exceptions, right? Another issue here, Uju Anya says it's impolite to ask where someone's from, but I neither agree nor disagree. Academic writing does need to be precise, and precise also means like using punctuation appropriately. If we don't have a capital A in Anya, then your reader doesn't automatically know that that's a name. So it's really important that we get people's names right and we'll punctuate them correctly, because that is not only precise, but it's also respectful. And the same will go with it is impolite, I with capital I, and so on. But okay, but I think we've made some good progress there, because we've gone from one-word responses to real conversation responses. Now, what typically happens with academic writing is we're not just responding to one tweet, but we're trying to collect multiple perspectives. And I just want to introduce a couple of perspectives for you now, and then I will give you one more task to try to put it all into practice. So I thought this was quite sweet. When Uju Anya posted this message on Twitter. Now, to be fair, I think Uju Anya is quite might enjoy being controversial sometimes. and she probably knew that making a bold statement like this, it's never polite to ask someone where they're from. Lots of people would react to that, and you can see lots of people retweeted this and quoted it, and it caused lots of discussion. And that's, you know, I think she's making an important point, but she's also on Twitter trying to get attention and raise her profile, and that's, you know, I absolutely respect her for that, and good for her. So she also got lots of abusive responses, like, how dare you, I'm not rude, and blah blah blah. But here's a really sweet response from Brantley Harris, who said, "Oh no, this is devastating to me. I live in a big city and there are a lot of immigrants, and I want to understand them and their journey, and now I don't know how. I'm sorry to anyone I've asked it of." And she responds to that, um, you make up your own mind here whether this is a better question or not. Uju Anya says, where do you consider home is a better choice? So what I'm trying to do here is just show you that as we read, just like that conversation in the room, we start to see lots of different perspectives. Someone who thinks it's always rude to ask where you're from, someone who is concerned by that and has no idea how to ask in a friendly way, how to understand people's journeys and get to know them better. We've got Uju Anya also saying, where do you consider home is a better choice? So there's another piece of information, another position. She also suggests you could volunteer your home first and talk about your origins, then allow the person to tell you what they want. And if we go on further, and I will put I'll put a link to this article in the chat if you'd like to explore. There's a longer text here that goes into a lot more detail about why this author thinks it's not a good idea to ask someone where they're from. And they give a really great personal example of being offended by asked where they're from and people assuming they're not from somewhere. And Rakshitha Ani Ravi Shankar introduces this concept that you may have heard of called microaggression. And here's a very quick summary of their argument. Asking someone where are you from can seem like a very innocuous, like innocent, unoffensive question, but it can quickly turn into a microaggression. It reduces someone's identity to a social group, a city, or a culture, and that can trigger feelings of alienation. Microaggressions can also reinforce differences and magnify unequal power structures. What can you do instead? Rethink your own unconscious bias, listen more deeply to what people want to share, and apologize if you hurt someone, even unintentionally. Right, so that's a summary of what Rakshitha Ravi Shankar says. I think you can navigate this yourself. So what I'd like us to do as a final activity for today, and then I'll let you ask some questions if you like, is this. Let's try to take in multiple perspectives. You can consider what other students have written on the Menti. Uju Anya argues that the question, where are you from, is never polite. To what extent do you agree or disagree, and why? And there we go back to Menti. You can take a few minutes. I'll just sit here patiently. I will put a link into the other article, but just try to write maybe 2 or 3 sentences now. Remember that we're going to try to be precise, concise, and respectful. You probably want to include Uju Anya's name in here as a starting point, and to bring in an element of how far you agree or disagree. You might benefit from referring to one of the other positions or texts that we've also seen. Bear with me a moment, and I'll also link in that other text, and I'll put it in the chat. But I'm really interested to see what kind of fuller answer you would like to give to that question now, and let's think of it as a conversation. I've just put a link in the chat to that other article. I will never ask you to do like extra reading because I think you have enough to read for your studies, and that should be your priority. And we can always use the things that you read for your studies. But if anyone is interested, or you want to come back to this, maybe watch a video of her talking. But Anita Sethi, I think she's got some really interesting things to say about things like belonging and where we're from and what that means. So I've just put a link into her website too. Fantastic. What I want to suggest with an example like this one, so when you're saying I agree with Uju Anya partially, it's great that you're using the author's name, but just remember that idea of like just someone picking this up tomorrow. Will they know what you're talking about? What you would need to do, I'm just going to type it into the chat so that you can, if you want to see this, you might write something like, I agree with Uju, sorry, I think it's Uju, not Uja. Uja Anya's argument that it is never polite to ask someone where they are from because. So I've just posted that into the chat. Instead of saying I agree partially, I might say I partially agree, put those words together, and then that allows me to say with Uju Anya's argument that it is never polite to ask someone where they are from. We're putting lots of detail into that sentence, which is really typical in academic writing, and we'll explore more of that in future webinars. But that allows us to name the author and also to say in our own words what her argument is. You'll see lots of people telling you at university that you need to paraphrase. And maybe what we don't say enough is that the reason people ask you to paraphrase is because they want to show that you have understood the thing that you've read, and also you want to make it as clear as possible for the reader. So that's why we would do something like that. Oops, sorry. I'm jumping between slides because I don't really know how to. Whoever said at the start of the session that you felt tired, I think I've reached that point. There you go. That's nice, bringing in the element of sarcasm. So same thing here. If you say, I agree with Uji Anya's sentiments, please say what those sentiments are. Same again here. I disagree with Uju Anya, include the detail of what she has actually said. I think with something like this, the claim, I would say the claim, where are you from? Sorry, the claim is debatable. Where are you from can be impolite if used to other someone, blah, blah, blah. I think this is good, but what we're missing is like the source of our information. So in future weeks, we'll talk a bit more about referencing, which is basically about showing what we've read and what we're talking and which other authors we're talking about. And that's what's missing here. There you go. There's a nice example for. Please do look at all of the other examples that people give. I think I'll end on this one because there you go. It's nice and simple. You didn't have to write hundreds of words, but here's an example of someone trying to show what Uju Anya said and what they think about it. And remember, that's what we've done a couple of times now. this is what I read, and this is what I think. And these are the building blocks of good academic writing. We just need to do it in a way that's precise, concise, and polite or respectful, and also make sure that we're following any instructions that we've been given. Okay, I just wanted to end by handing over to you to allow you to ask a couple of questions. I mentioned at the beginning that my job at the University of Hertfordshire is that I am the Associate Director for Academic Skills. So when I talk about academic skills, I mean reading, writing, organizing yourself and your time, thinking, and especially critical thinking, interacting with one another, using numbers and data. We have a central Herts academic skills team, but we have Herts academic skills teams in each of the schools. So the central Herts academic skills email address is in the chat. It's has@herts.ac.uk. And our central website is accessible via goherts.ac.uk and then academic skills, or just Herts academic skills should take you there. But do let me know. But you'll also see from there links to the academic skills resources and pages within your particular school. So lots of HTML students in this session, and you have a Herts academic skills HTML led by my wonderful colleagues Andrew and Sheepa. If you have any questions about anything I've said, any concerns that have raised because of anything I've said, or you've got any feedback, you're very welcome to email me at m.holloway3@herts.ac.uk. If you'd like to book a one-to-one tutorial or anything like that, I don't necessarily have time for that, but my team do, and it's again has@herts.ac.uk. And finally, I'd really love to know from you how this webinar was for you. If you've got any comments that you'd like to make, any questions you'd like to ask, or any requests for future sessions, please do share them via the Menti now, and I'll be able to respond. I'm also happy to take any questions in the chat, or if you want to ask via microphone. I'll hang around for another 5 or 10 minutes. But that is everything that I was planning to share with you today. And over to you. Happy to take any questions if you've got them. In next week's webinar, we will look a little bit. We will look in more detail about how we refer to other authors. So we'll start to look at referencing, how we do a better job of summarizing what other authors have said. In other words, how can we really capture and summarize things that we've read, and what language can help us to do that effectively in a way that is precise, concise, and respectful. Thank you for your time this afternoon, evening. I'm sure you're very busy people and you might have other places to be. So you're very welcome to leave. I will stay around for a few minutes just in case anyone has any questions and wants to ask anything. But really lovely to see you. Thank you so much for your interaction with the Menti. The format will be the same every week unless there are specific requests for anything particularly different. But you will be able to use the same you'll be able to use the same Teams link every week. It will be the same link. You just join at 4 o'clock. I can get a register of everyone who's attended through Teams. If you didn't enter with your University of Hertfordshire account, then that becomes a bit more tricky for me. And next week I will do a Microsoft form to capture attendance as well. If anyone is interested in maybe having some kind of certificate of attendance from attending like the series of webinars this semester, do let me know. It's not something that I normally do, but I'm happy to do this. I know that some people like to have a certificate, so I could do that. Thank you very much for your kind comments in the chat and on the Menti. Yeah, someone's made the point that using academic text would be good. Yeah, we will work towards using academic text. Now, what you'll see, what I do in the first couple of sessions is we start with prompts that I feel like everyone can understand and respond to. One of the challenges with using academic text is that they're long and they might be very specialized. And it can be a little bit early for me to just say to you, what do you think of this? Like the idea of you might find that people talk to you at university about critiquing, and at the end of, say, a master's degree, then you'll be pretty good, I think, at picking up a journal article and critiquing it. So that would be understanding what are the limitations to this article or this piece of research. What are the gaps, or what further research do we need to see? I think you become good at this over time when you do your own research and when you do a lot of reading. But I typically find at the beginning of a year, if we ask any group of students, like, here, look at this piece of writing by an expert that's been published, what's wrong with it? Your feeling would probably be there's nothing wrong with it. So we will work towards using more academic texts, but I want to try and make sure that they will be things that everyone will be able to do something with. I see that there were 63 people on the Menti, so I'm glad that you were able to access that while also being in the Teams call. That's not always easy. Okay. I don't know if everyone is just too polite to leave the Teams meeting, but please do feel free to leave unless you have anything you want to say or ask. If I don't get any questions in the next 2 minutes, I will also leave and I'll go home to my beautiful family. Thank you, Anthony. No need to call me sir. Please call me Mark. That's in a university community, we're first names, which might be difficult. It might be a difficult thing to adapt to, but this is these are the unspoken rules of the community. So I'm speaking the rules of the community by telling you that. Hello, Mildred. I can see that you're joining us from the Royal Free. So I'm sure you're doing a great job there. Mildred, this session has already finished. I think by joining it, I've recorded, and I think by joining, you should find that you've got access to the recording.
Thank you.
But
Sorry for
I'll put
joining
that
late.
online. Not at all, not at all. I understand. I'm gonna. Mildred, the royal free is in